I was living in so much pain, self-loathing, shame, criticism, feeling like I didn't belong here. It had to get so bad for me to wake up to, wow, this is really scary. Like you're actually really unwell. Something only triggers you because on some level you believe it to be true.
I agree and disagree.
Okay. If you're in your inner critic and self-loathing, we have to get you to the neutral ground, the middle ground. We can't change what we don't first acknowledge. I was an elite athlete, but it was as a way of running from my pain. People were really uncomfortable with me sharing about my past and my trauma and naming my father as like a big part of my pain. You know, some of my family were really uncomfortable with it, and that's okay. Children actually, all they need is a loving witness to their pain, right? They just need you to be there. They don't need you to talk. They don't need you to do much. They co-regulate with your presence.
I was maybe 4, we were probably 4, he was probably 5.
Wow.
And we met.
That young?
Yeah, we were young, or maybe 5 and 6. We were young. And we hit it off at this trivia night.
Wow.
And our parents knew each other, but that was the first time we met.
Wow.
And then the next day I was at my house playing basketball, and like we've kind of been best mates since.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
I love that. And you're on this growth journey together.
Yeah,
That's
it.
really nice. That's, yeah, not a lot
And
of people.
we've been on the hustle for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, even as like young kids, we're kind of just trying to work out,
Always.
trying
Yeah.
to crack the code.
Yeah. So how long have you been
Doesn't
friends?
Forever.
30,
Since,
yeah,
yeah.
Like since you were 4 or 5?
29
Yeah.
years.
Oh,
yeah.
wow. So 30 years.
Yeah, 30
wow.
years, yeah. It's a
Wow,
long time.
that's amazing.
25.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, that's incredible. Gosh, that's a
yeah.
long time to keep such a good friendship.
It
and
is. And
growth.
it only gets stronger.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, have you guys done a podcast on that?
No, but we
You should. You should do a podcast on that because that's
Yeah.
really unique. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a
God,
bad
yeah.
idea.
To have a solid friendship like that where you're actually growing together. I don't think people talk enough about friendship breakups, like how friends don't stay with you through the phases of growth. I see that a lot with like a lot of my clients.
We're very in alignment. So when
Yeah.
I feel like even frequency-wise, if we lower our frequencies, we'll both be on that same frequency at the same time. And when we raise frequency, we're kind of always in alignment. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's the key. You got to
That's
keep up
awesome.
with each other.
But
Yeah.
also we've had phases where like we're not that close.
Yeah, we have.
Like
No.
you
Yeah.
have,
Yeah.
it's just that general like friendship, like it's normal, you know, but we could go like 2 years not talking to each other. We see each other and it's just like.
It's just like nothing's happened.
Just chill.
Not recently though, but yeah.
Yeah.
I was in
Well, of course, if you got the
yeah,
podcast and stuff like that, yeah.
Now I have to see him once a week.
That's
If
so
I could
good.
see him every day, I would.
Oh, that's beautiful. Healthy masculinity right
Yeah,
there.
That's it.
But yeah, so what you find that like a lot of friendships obviously split. Like, what do you mean by like? Is it?
I think that I haven't seen it as much in my life, but I've seen a lot of women I work with talk about like, you know, when you're asleep, you're completely like whatever, you're partying, you're just hanging out with people because it's coincidental. Like you work with them, they live next door to you, whatever. And then all of a sudden you start like wanting to understand yourself more. You stop drinking, you start reading books, going to seminars. And a lot of people I talk to have a lot of grief around like friendship, like, people falling away because it's uncomfortable to be around you. I don't know if you've seen it with success. Like I see this in like when you start really making big money, sometimes you're a mirror to people who aren't wanting to look at the fact that they aren't doing that.
I also think it's a frequency thing.
Yeah.
I do think it's a frequency thing. Like,
yeah.
And I've seen it with like ex-girlfriends where like they'll stay, and it's so many levels. There's physical levels, there's mental levels, there's the level of jealousy or whatever. But to me, it's frequency is the number one thing. If you're raising your frequency and someone's not keeping up, just the law of the universe, you're just going to attach from each other. Yeah,
100%. Well, you think about it, right? Frequency is just emotion. So as you go up the scale of consciousness and you start feeling like there are 3 tiers to the scale of consciousness. The bottom is like survival, which is you're feeling like a lot of fear, anger, anxiety, jealousy, criticism, those sorts of emotions, like just emotions most people fear, judgment. Yeah. And then the middle tier is, the first one's acceptance, like just accepting where you're at, accepting where other people are at, courage, willingness, neutrality, like just nothing. And then the top is like abundance, love, joy, authenticity, right? But so when you talk about high frequency, like you got some people up here and then you got some people down here like that, that's hard to connect because these people down here want to bitch and moan and gossip and complain.
Different interests too.
Yeah, whereas up here you want to talk about projects and ideas and ways of making money and doing exciting things and travel. So yeah.
For sure.
Yeah,
I actually remember like maybe 10 years ago, Jonathan drew me this spiral of frequencies. And then he was like,
that's cool.
Remember?
Yeah, which essentially looking at most ways when you look at it, there's like, it's broken into two. It's the first time I've heard of it being broken down into three separate, which is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a scale of consciousness it was created by David Hawken. He was the one that came up with the theory. But the very first step out of survival mode is acceptance. And how many people do you know can't even get to that point of acceptance? Like they're still bitter about something that's happened in their life. Like they still wish something was different. That's not accepting.
Yeah.
That's the opposite of acceptance.
Forgiveness is a big one.
Yeah, but even just yourself, like accepting where you're at. Yeah, that's a lot of people don't even have that. So I find it really fascinating.
Yeah, but also acceptance is the leeway into the forgiveness, because if you can't accept it, you could accept and forgive almost in the same moment. Yeah. Too. Like forgiveness means you've accepted.
I feel like you can forgive and accept, and you can accept and forgive. I feel like it's the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I think it probably is similar. Yeah.
Yeah, so people, like friendships like break up, and obviously the energy and the consciousness side of things is like one person's gravitating to more positive things, different lifestyle, and then people get left behind. And then, so it's the people, the ladies that you're talking to, the ones that are affected with the grief are the ones that are moving up the scale of consciousness, not the ones that are getting left behind. Yeah, they don't feel it as much.
They're the ones doing the work, wanting to grow, wanting more for themselves. But I'll also invite this. Sometimes people like, I had that, right? I had one of my best friends, the way we used to socialize was drink alcohol, bitch, gossip, go out on the town. And I started not wanting to do that. Now I can do one of two things. I can either like slowly stop seeing her and remove her out of my life, or I can have an honest conversation and I can invite her on the journey with me. And I can say, hey, like, I know that I've been a part of this friendship and I've brought a lot of this negativity in the way that we socialize. And I'm just noticing I'm not really drawn to that anymore. Like I would love to go for breakfast, go for walks, go to the beach. Like, would you be open to that with me? Yeah. And a lot of women aren't willing to have that conversation. It's easier just to slowly, like quietly stop answering the calls, stop returning the texts. And that's where I think there's a difference. And if you are willing to invite people on the journey, some of them go with you.
Yeah. But also sometimes it shines like when you're on the journey, it will shine light on people that are more negative and like they affect you. So you kind of, you stay away for yourself.
Of course.
Because you get affected, you feel, because you start to get in tune with how you feel, your body, your emotions. And then when you see someone and you start to notice the way they make you feel, what spirals after you see them. Like, so sometimes it's more of you're protecting your energy.
Of course. And you can have boundaries. And I would absolutely recommend if you are consistently spending time with someone who drains you or like pulls you out of your authenticity, or you feel like you're abandoning yourself or you have to not be yourself, then I definitely think it's worth putting boundaries on that friendship or that relationship, 100%. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
If you're serious about energy, recovery, and long-term health, listen to this. C60 supports your cells by helping reduce oxidative stress and by supporting mitochondrial function, which is your body's energy production. One of the few supplements that we personally take daily.
We only talk about products we actually use, and Carbon 60 is one that stayed in our routine. For us, the difference showed up in recovery, clearer thinking, and overall day-to-day resilience. If you have been looking for something that supports your body at a deeper level, C60 is definitely worth exploring. If we want to like understand your story and how you got here, how would you explain it? Like, let's wind the clock back to a time where, you were a completely different person, child.
Yeah, not that long ago. I'm 43, and honestly, if you'd met me 10 years ago, you would not think I was an emotional intelligence coach. I was emotionally explosive. I was a leader. I didn't lead people very well. I was very unconscious. I was very much driven by my shame, and I had no idea. So I grew up in a home where there was a lot of trauma with my father. And, I didn't know this till I was in my 20s, but I was actually his stepdaughter, and he could never really accept me. He always rejected me and compared me to my siblings. And that was very painful. I couldn't understand why. And, I grew up just feeling so unworthy, so broken, so like honestly suicidal. I was diagnosed with depression at 22. I just honestly felt really lost. My whole thing was I honestly believed I would live until I was 30 to make sure my brother and sister were okay. They were like my world. I just wanted to make sure they were okay. And then I would take my life. Like that was honestly my plan. And I definitely tried to take my life a number of times. And what I found really interesting was I was living in so much pain. But when I had this last moment of like trying to take my life and I actually reached out to a friend for help, you know, I went and lived with him and his family for a couple of weeks, and then I had to kind of share with my family and my close friends what was going on. They were so surprised that I was feeling so bad. And I was surprised that they were surprised at that because I just thought it was obvious. And in that moment, I realized I was living a very, I was living one way externally, but behind closed doors, I was a completely different person. So externally, I ran a number of women's only gyms based in New South Wales. I was very successful. I was a part of the community. I had lots of friends and family. I had a partner. Like externally, I looked like I had it all. But behind closed doors, I was like stuck in thoughts of self-loathing, shame, criticism, feeling like I didn't belong here. And so, I'd already been to so many psychologists and therapists in the 15 years leading up to that. Like I had tried all of that, but weirdly, I finally went to this one therapist and she introduced me to Brené Brown. And she had a TED talk about shame. And I watched this TED talk in the car park and I just burst into tears. And it was the first time I really understood that's what I was struggling with, is so much internal shame. So internal shame is a feeling of not being good enough, feeling bad or broken. And I would argue most people on the planet have some level of shame. And that was the beginning of my healing. That was the beginning of me taking ownership and taking responsibility for like having to understand myself. And I could then understand as a child, the reason why I felt so broken was so many needs went unmet. I really think we underestimate, like as a child, how much we need for our mother and our father to be pouring love into us. We need to look at them and know that we are loved, that we are safe, that we are accepted, that we are understood. We need to see that they delight in our presence. And my father absolutely didn't have that. Every time he looked at me, I was a reminder of his pain, and we were very poor. And I think he always resented the fact that he had to provide for another child that wasn't his. And it was really painful, even though he did the best that he could. Like he really did do the best that he could. And ironically, my dad is hearing impaired. So he's one of 3. And as a young boy, he was sent to boarding school on his own because he was deaf. And so isn't it interesting that he felt rejected by his mother? And so when he became a stepfather, it made so much sense for him to reject me because that emotion was still, that pain was still inside of him and that had to go somewhere. Yeah. And that came onto me. Yeah. And ironically, now I'm a stepmother and I thought I was healed. I met the love of my life and so happy. And I moved to Melbourne 12 months ago and it has been very challenging. It's brought up all of my wounds of like rejection and not accepting him. And it's just fascinating to me. And I think, wow, my dad didn't have the tools I have now. And he did the best that he could. And I have forgiven him for that. But that's what led me to feeling so broken and living my life just running from that pain, drinking and just like staying busy, trying to succeed, not really being able to ever sit with myself and actually like who I was.
Yeah. Make sure that generational curse stops with you now.
Yeah, 100%. I'm doing everything I can.
So there was a big gap between, your childhood and you feeling suicidal. Were there things that happened in between that like added fuel to the fire? Or do you think it was just that childhood that made you suicidal? Like lead up to like what made you get to the point where you thought you would take your own life?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it was interesting. My self-worth was so low. I allowed myself to get involved with a young guy and I thought that we had like a romantic relationship, but really he was actually mocking me with his friends. Like he thought it was a joke to have this older woman chasing him. And long story short, they sort of played a joke on me one evening and it just absolutely, I suppose like impacted me so bad, like so much that was the thing that drove me to do that. Yeah. And to actually take that step, even though I had already thought about it so many times prior. I really believe like, if I was a secure person and that happened, I wouldn't have been as affected. I would have been upset, but I was already a broken woman. And so for that, it was just the cherry on top.
Yeah.
But it was a gift because it had to get so bad for me to wake up to, wow, this is really scary. Like you're actually really unwell.
Yeah. And then before that incident, you're saying that you always had it on your mind.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Yeah, that was a coping mechanism. So people who, you know, have suicide ideation, it's actually not about them not wanting to be here anymore. It's actually about you not wanting to experience the pain anymore. So I think what a lot of people misconstrue this healing journey to be is about avoiding uncomfortable emotions. It's actually not. It's actually about learning how to be with the uncomfortable emotions without letting your mind spiral and make it mean something about you. So every time I would have any sort of sadness, depression, unworthiness come up, I would immediately attach story to that and something about me. Like I'm never going to be happy. I'm never going to have a future. No one's ever going to want to marry me. I'm never going to have kids. And I would just spiral because I didn't know how to actually just be with the pain of that moment and just allow myself to feel sad. I'm just sad right now. This is okay. It's normal to feel sad about that. That was a really upsetting episode. So like as a child, we need our parents to speak words of self-soothing into us to help us understand how to feel emotions such as anger, shame, sadness, fear, and disgust. And if we don't have that, we won't know how to cope with the emotion. And that's where we go into making it mean something about us. So I honestly believe the only reason I really thought that way was because I just didn't know how to hold my own pain. Where now I really do know how to do that.
And explain what it looks like not to be able to hold your own, like as in what was it that your parents, again, I know they did the best they can, but what do you think they did wrong and what could they have done better?
Yeah, okay, great question. So I really believe that your emotional home, which is formed between ages 0 and 7, are the emotions that your parents did not heal within themselves. So my mother had a lot of sadness, depression and loneliness and unworthiness. And my dad had a huge amount of rejection, shame and unworthiness. Now, what did that mean? Like, so that got suppressed, like pushed onto me. So whenever I would have sadness, I wouldn't know how to cope with it. So I would just push it back down and I would go and do something to stay busy, or I would distract myself. I would scroll my phone. I would go and drink wine, or I'd go and catch up with a friend. I would do anything to run from that feeling because I didn't trust my body. Like I didn't know how to sit and allow myself to feel that emotion. You know, an emotion actually lasts 90 seconds if you fully allow it to be in your body. So if you walked outside today and someone did something that made you really angry, if you just kept going and you were on the phone and doing this, doing that, that emotion would keep popping up for you for probably a couple of hours. Whereas if you actually took a moment and you went to the bathroom and you took a few deep breaths and you're like, oh, wow, I'm really angry. I can feel my whole body shaking. Okay, that makes sense. Someone just, you know, did something to me. Like, you know, someone just broke my phone or something. That makes sense that I'm really angry right now. And if you actually allow it to have that time and space to kind of feel that charge and let it dissipate, then you don't carry it on into your day. But not many of us know how to do that. So I think if, you know, what I wish, and I mean, I don't wish any changes because I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for my childhood. But what I tell parents now to do, you can't support a child of yours to sit with an emotion that you don't feel comfortable sitting with within yourself. So, you know, if your kids, if you don't like yourself when you feel angry, when they come home and they're angry, you're going to suppress it in them. And children actually, all they need is a loving witness to their pain, right? They just need you to be there. They don't need you to talk. They don't need you to do much. They co-regulate with your presence. So if you're there and they're really angry or upset or scared and you're right there and they can feel your breath, they can feel your touch and they know that they're safe, they will naturally self-regulate that emotion. And as they get older, that emotion keeps popping up. They self-regulate over and over and over. So as an adult, when it pops up, they know how to self-regulate it. But if a child goes to be angry and you say, oh, don't be angry, it's okay, we'll just do this instead. Or, oh, don't be angry, go to your room, that's so rude. Then they're going to learn this emotion is bad because what is happening is love is taken away when I express this emotion. And then as they get older, that emotion's going to keep coming up and then that's going to spill out onto other people. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like we have to learn how to be with those emotions ourselves. Too many parents these days are recognizing trauma and recognizing this emotional intelligence and connected parenting, but they're doing it from a place of, I want to teach my child how to be with their emotions, not actually learn how to do it yourself. I want you to think about this. If you were both obese and your partners were obese and you had children, what do you think the chances of those children growing up to be healthy would be? Pretty small.
Small?
Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? If you were obese and you lived an obese lifestyle and you have children, do you think they're going to grow up to be healthy and athletic or obese?
It's monkey see, monkey do. The kids are always just going to, like the parents can only lead by example.
Exactly. And the same goes for emotional intelligence.
From a place of emotional intelligence, how do you lead by example? Like I'm still, I understand it, but I'm still a little bit confused because by just being there for them, but it's like the choice of words that you use and being with them. But what's that got to do with the way you regulate your own emotions?
Yeah, good question. So like when you're with, do you guys have kids?
Yeah, we both.
Oh, amazing. Okay, cool. Yeah. We can actually workshop this. So I want you to tell me what emotion, when you get most triggered by your kids, what emotion is it that they are having?
Just being annoying.
Yeah. No,
I'm not so sure.
So like when you're really triggered by your kids, what is the emotion?
Not the emotion. When they're not listening.
Yep.
And they're being cheeky. I don't know, but that's not an emotion. But
okay, so when they're not listening, would you say maybe you're struggling with a sense of control?
Yes.
Like you're feeling powerless?
Potentially.
Yeah. Okay, what about you?
I don't know. I don't know if I really get triggered by them.
Okay. You never get triggered by your kids?
I do get triggered.
Okay.
Like usually when I'm busy and I'm trying to get something done and they're in my way.
Yeah.
That's the only time I really get triggered by them.
Yeah. Okay, so presence, like when they're…
So that's like more a patience thing maybe?
Yeah, it could be patience, yeah. So what I want you to think about is when your child is triggering you most, it's actually because on some level that's an emotion you haven't learned how to be with yourself. Can I ask you, are there any other areas of your life where you feel powerless or out of control?
Not really, no.
No? Okay.
Not much.
Okay, cool. All right. Are there any other areas of your life where you feel impatient or inability to be present?
Inability to be present.
Like have you ever had anyone, like does your partner ever say to you like, I want you to be more present?
No.
No, okay. No. All right, this isn't really going to plan.
We might be unique scenarios, I don't know.
Do you spend time with your kids?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you do. How old are your kids?
My daughter's 3.
Okay, all right.
And
yeah, I've got 3 girls.
Oh, wow.
So they're 4, 2 and just a newborn.
Okay. Yes, they're old enough to be triggering. Like, yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Well, oftentimes like, okay, I'll give you an example, right?
Sorry, it's funny because like for me, I get the most triggered when I'm like, say I'm going to meditate.
Yep.
And I'm in a meditation, I've got the bottle of water next to me and then one of the kids comes and it's okay if they jump on me while I'm meditating, but then they knock the water over and then there's water spilling everywhere and then I've got to jump out of them. That'll kind of trigger me. But that's like, how can you not get triggered over that, I guess?
Yeah.
As in, because I'm trying to down-regulate, but then they're pulling me out of it.
Yeah.
But that's the only scenario that I can really think of.
Yeah. Okay. So
and that's not that often.
Yeah. It's not that often. Yeah. So I would say
I feel like they bring so much joy that like whatever they do, like even if they wake up at night, I find it cute. I don't really like get upset by it or get affected.
Yeah.
It's also hard for me to get triggered because like, I don't know, I'll give you like it's all perspective. And for me, like an example, like a perfect example was 2 days ago, I've got a steam room at my house and I had the steam room door. This is just off topic, but it's just the perspective thing. Like the steam room door was on an angle and I need to like adjust the hinges. So I was adjusting the hinges and it's a big glass door to a steam room and I was like doing it on my own and I cracked the glass everywhere, massive door. I was bleeding everywhere, glass everywhere, everything was ruined. And my missus came in, she's like, what happened? And my first reaction was, what a blessing. What a blessing. And she's like, what do you mean what a blessing? I'm like, if I sit here and say like, what a tragedy, is that going to help the situation? It's not going to help the situation. I'm just like, what a blessing. Now I took my time, I cleaned it, I put music on, I ordered a new door and I was happy. Like, I feel like that's the way I tackle 99% of things in my life. Like, I don't, like being
sitting with
upset,
two
being upset and triggered by something does not fix the problem.
Okay.
Doesn't change the issue.
Yep.
Doesn't help me in any way.
Yep. But
I always choose. I literally said, thank God. I said, thank God. Like, as in, thank God I can go get more glass tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thank God I'm able to do the things that I'm doing. Like, it's very hard for me at the moment, like how I am in this present time, to be triggered. I'll just be honest.
Yeah,
but
that's great.
In saying that, one thing that triggers me is disrespect from others. Like, that's probably my biggest trigger.
Okay, so I'm gonna tell you why. Okay, now if I was to sit here and say you are the color purple, would that trigger you?
No.
Like, your skin is the color purple.
I know where this is going. Yeah. Okay.
It wouldn't trigger you because you know it's not true.
Yeah.
Something only triggers you because on some level you believe it to be true. So when you say people disrespect you, on some level there might be a belief that you don't feel adequate enough. Because I'll say to you, right, if you've got someone over here that feels really worthy and someone speaks to them in a poor way, you're going to look at that person and understand that's a reflection of them. It's not a reflection of you at all. Okay. But if you've got someone over here who feels unworthy and someone speaks to them in a poor way, they're going to hook onto that and they're going to make that mean something about them. You disrespected me.
I agree and disagree.
Okay.
I agree to a certain extent. Like, for example, what if I'm walking down the street and someone says something to my missus, not in a disrespectful way? I'm not being triggered. Like, I'm being triggered by someone talking to my missus. That's not an emotion that I'm feeling, that I'm being triggered by something that I'm insecure about. It's outside of me. Yeah. So what would that scenario?
Well, I feel like that wouldn't even trigger you though.
No, as in, not if they're being like, if someone like
ultra disrespectful, not like hitting on her, like whatever, but as in like being ultra disrespectful. I think we're unique because we're like deep, like we're both builders. We've got experience in construction. I feel like it's such a stressful environment. There is always shit going wrong that we've adapted that mentality of just being okay with anything that happens, because on the daily there is always shit going on.
Yeah. So you're just used to we're used with to the punches.
Yeah. Like even today I was looking at like everything that's going on. I'm like, man, how am I so chill about everything?
I need a bit of that. Maybe you guys are
being honest, I'm actually being we are a very unique scenario. Like, we keep everything pretty mellow. Like you said, I've got 10 construction jobs on at the moment. Like I'm constantly putting out fires.
So I will, and that's awesome for you guys. But can I ask you, you got four girls between you, okay? Do you want to be the kind of dad that your girls feel safe with their emotions?
Of course.
Okay, so I'm gonna say to you, right? When you say what a blessing when your glass shower shatters, right? That's awesome for you to say that to yourself.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, when your wife or your little girl has pain or something happens, they get hurt, a friend does something hurtful to them, and they come to you with that. And if you go straight to trying to show them that they should just be grateful, that they should just, that's actually quite dismissive. And what that's going to do is they're going to learn, oh, I shouldn't feel bad about this. I should push this down because, on some level. So what I always recommend is connection before correction. So what I would always say is if someone comes to you with pain and you're really quiet, you've got a big tolerance for like being able to process what's going on for yourself, first validate the person what they might be feeling. So, that sounds really hurtful. Like that must have really hurt.
Yeah.
Or that must feel really, painful, or that must feel really upsetting. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And be with them in that moment, then lead them to, okay, can we think about other friends to play with, or da-da-da-da.
Yeah,
so that's the only thing I would challenge you on. If you bring that energy to other people when they bring you their pain, they're going to learn to stop bringing you their pain because you're just going to dismiss it.
No, there's a big difference between how I would
with
treat
yourself
adversity
and with others.
than how I'd treat, especially my daughter. Like, she's my princess.
Yeah.
I don't want her to. I'll nurture her in a different way than I nurture myself. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
But what she'll do is she'll start to listen to the way you talk about your own pain as well. Yeah. So like she'll like learn, oh, well, dad never lets himself be angry. Dad never lets himself be sad. Dad never lets himself feel anything. So I shouldn't either.
Yeah.
So like I think a part of healthy parenting is actually talking to you, like acknowledging with your kids that sometimes you feel hurt, angry, sad, frustrated, annoyed, because it's normal. It's a part of being a human being.
in no way or shape or form am I never angry or perfect, but it does take a fair chunk of shit and
your tolerance, window of tolerance.
But I get angry for sure.
And that's that just goes to show your window of tolerance. Like, and that's a sign of high emotional intelligence, because if you can hold a lot, if a lot can happen and you can hold it, that means that you're clearing out those, and you're obviously meditating. So you're processing emotions daily. Whereas a lot of people aren't doing that. A lot of people are just suppressing daily, suppressing. So then one little thing happens and they explode. And that's because they're not taking that time day to day.
You said something before, like I remember a couple of weeks ago, I can't remember what the situation was, but I was angry. Like I was triggered, my heart was racing, like I was angry. And I remember just like talking to myself saying like, don't let this flow through. And within a minute of breathing, I just focused on my breath. My heart was racing. I focused on my breath. I took like multiple inhales, and within a minute I was like, I let it go.
Exactly.
And I was like, wow. Like
90 seconds.
So capable.
And do you know why? Because you acknowledged that you were angry. You felt your body. You could feel your heart pulsing. You allowed yourself to feel it by just breathing. You gave yourself that time. So you were able to just, emotion is just energy in motion. It just needs to move through you and then it's gone. So that you're doing the exact thing that I'm talking about. You're actually allowing yourself to process it without holding on to it and suppressing it.
Well, there you go.
Makes
sense.
And in saying all of this, we've never been like, as in we've come from a place of like getting ultra triggered. Like back in, when we were a bit younger, it takes like obviously through the journey and like through the tools of meditation, breath work, doing things daily. It's an endless journey. You could spiral for 2 weeks and then end up getting triggered really easily. And fuck, when if we were to get angry, like our anger is like probably intense.
And there is no end point. It's not until you die. Like you're constantly on this journey and healing and growing. And it's like there is no end point. As long as you're a human being, you're going to have people that are going to trigger you, experiences, life is going to happen.
And also, again, I'll mention frequency. I feel like I do consider myself a high frequency human being. So I feel like the higher your frequency, the harder it is to get triggered, because like, man, there's people on the roads that like they get angry because someone bumped into, like as in cut them off. It's like that triggers you. It's like, wow, how easily are you triggered? Like how low frequency are you? You can know straight away, like you're so miserable with your life that the smallest little thing triggers you to the point where the rest of your week's probably going to be shit because you don't know how to regulate your emotions. Like I can see that in humans, but
and when I see people like that, I actually empathize because I remember a time where I was that. It's like I remember a time where I was that person where I was so easily triggered and I was so blind and I was so asleep and I was so like just in the weeds of it all,
It's interesting because even earlier you said that, you were living this life that everyone would see, but then internally you were living a whole different life. I feel like everyone lives that, even regardless of what the internal life is like. The internal life could be very positive or very negative, either way, but everyone lives that sort of like, it's not a double life, but it's just what people perceive compared to what your thought, because we're always constantly processing thoughts. Everyone. That never really stops, or for me, it never does. So it's there's always that internal world, and the way you think about things, the way you process those thoughts, but then there's always that the way that people perceive you that's completely different,
Well, you could stand up in front of 10 different people and you could give a 10-minute speech. Every single one of those people will experience you differently through the lens of their own life, their own experiences, their own parenting, their own challenges. They will all see differently. I see this all the time. When you're in this position where you're a public profile, like a public personality, you will receive projection. So I'm a successful woman. Some people are really inspired by that. Some people are intimidated by that. Some people find that really off-putting. Some people love it. None of that has anything to do with me. So I believe that authenticity, like I try really hard to live my life in authenticity. So I think the way I've changed from 10 years ago is I used to suppress the bad parts of myself, whereas now I actually share them. I share, and I've got a few friends, a few solid friends where I can tell them all of the messed up stuff that I think and I do. Like, it's like, that's actually for me deeply healing. Because it's like this. Can you believe that I thought this the other day?
Yeah.
And my friend can be like, yeah, you know what? I've been there.
Yeah.
And that for me is like, I never could do that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I share it with my clients, you know, in my client work, you know, when you work with me in my mentorship, I share with you all of those dark parts of myself. So, because I know for me, when I did a lot of therapy and a lot of psychology, like when I was seeing a psychologist, I did not change at all because I never felt the connection to the other person in the room. I remember the first mentor I worked with where I stepped away from the traditional ways and I moved into coaching, like I explored coach. And every time I would be sharing something with him, he would validate it and sit with me in that and just hold space. And then he would bring a story of his own and he would tell me a story that would help me just go, oh, wow, I get that now. And it was so profound to me. And that mentorship changed my life in so many reasons, but also the way I mentor people now.
Yeah.
I share so much of my own stuff with people so that they can feel less shame. Because, you know, Brené Brown says, shame, it grows when it's hidden in darkness, but when light is brought to it, it dissipates. So how do we bring light to it? We bring it to the surface and we share it.
Yeah.
I really believe in the future, group therapy is going to be the way of the future. Like, we're not going to do one-on-one therapy anymore. We're going to get in rooms with men and women and we're going to shed shame in that way. I run a one-day workshop with women and a retreat where you bring 10 to 12 women together and it's like 5 years of therapy in one day because, you know, there's a great quote that I love, which is like a knife can't cut itself, fire can't burn itself, consciousness can't see itself. Sometimes you can't see yourself. You see it through other people.
Yeah.
And then what happens is you see yourself reflected back to you through other people and you either do one of two things. You're either inspired or you're triggered.
Yeah.
You're inspired because you see something in someone that you know you have within you that you want to tap into more of.
Yeah.
When you're triggered, it's because you see something in someone else that you actually want to let go of. You know that you do that same thing and you haven't acknowledged it yet and you want to break that habit.
I agree to a certain extent and disagree because the only reason I disagree is because like through meditation, I've shined light on my biggest downfalls in my life and changed them through one session of meditation.
That's amazing.
Like, I feel like that's been the biggest part of my growth is like when you're doing things unconsciously, you just continue to do them and you're not shining light on them.
Yeah.
But I've had, I don't know, maybe 10 bad habits through meditation over the past 10 years where it comes up through meditation and I see myself as a third person and I feel shameful and regret and, you know, all these bad emotions. And then it helps heal that thing. And then it shines light through the meditation and then I will stop doing that thing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So I feel like there are other tools.
Yeah, and sometimes sometimes we can see ourselves like I've had moments where I've sat on my own and I've reflected on something and I've realized like I've had something come through. I'm not saying it can't happen.
Yeah.
But I'm saying in a group scenario, the way I've been doing group healing for about 3 years now.
Yeah.
Personally going to and experiencing it myself and also hosting and facilitating.
Yeah. And
in my experience, it's a hugely beneficial tool because what can happen in 24 hours is like humongous.
Yeah,
like,
so much more than a one-on-one session.
I would say in my experience, yes.
For most people in there, they'll have heaps more results sitting in a group.
Yeah. In the words, like, because what happens is when you're sitting there, you could go into a group healing session and not say a word, but you hear someone saying blah, 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 and you kind of go, oh, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I'm going through. And you see it and you're like, oh, that person feels that too. Oh, that person feels that too. And all of a sudden, and you think about this, right? Like I see this all the time. I see women who are not successful and not feeling confident about themselves sitting next to a really successful, beautiful woman. And she thinks, oh, she must be so confident. Yeah. But then this woman starts talking about, oh, you know, this guy won't return my calls and I'm worried this and I'm worried that and I feel fat and I did it. And then all of a sudden she's like, I can't believe you feel that way. And all of a sudden what happens is shame gets lost and shedded and healed because you're kind of like, wow, I'm not the only person that feels this way. Other people feel it too, no matter how successful they are, how attractive they are, how high achieving they are.
So the feelings, I feel like it all comes down to that little voice in your head. So
1,000%.
It's constantly like, you know, when you're in your biggest depression, what was the voice in your head saying? You're not worthy. You know, you don't feel good.
Yeah.
What is it? Do you have some tools to help people, you know, change that voice in their head?
100%. So like, okay, so I just want to go back a second, right? So for me, it was, I'm not worthy. I don't belong here. No one wants me. The world would be a better place if I didn't exist.
Yeah.
Now, when I think about my childhood and how many times my father looked at me with contempt and with distaste and with like, just literally looking at me with disgust, like it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
That I felt that way. I felt so unwanted. So here I am in my inner critic. And we want to get people to their inner coach, right? But to get there is, so one thing for me I used to fantasize about as a little girl was, because I was trying to run from my pain, I would think one day I'm going to grow up and I'm going to get married and I'm going to have my own family, my own home. And I'm never going to let anyone feel like they're not welcome here. Now, interestingly enough, of course, that was my whole thing, that I thought that will just solve my pain, and it didn't. And I kept bringing in relationship after relationship that would never last. So I had to go from I'm not worthy of love, like no one will ever want to be with me, to where I am now, which is I'm actually a really amazing person and I'm so worthy of love just as much as anyone else on the planet is, just as much as you are. Like every single person listening to this podcast is worthy of love just because they exist. But I couldn't get from here to here. So again, let's think about the scale of consciousness. So here I'm in survival mode. The first step to getting out of that is acceptance. And then to get over here is to get into love and abundance, right? But the first step was acceptance. So I had to just find like phrases that were moving me 1% away from that self-loathing, which is just, Nerida, like I couldn't say to myself, you are so worthy of love, because it didn't feel right.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I would say, everyone is worthy of love and that includes you. So I would try and like bundle it up in everyone else, right?
Yeah.
So what I really recommend you do, because the way you think informs the way you feel informs the way you behave, and the way you behave creates your results, and around you go. So if you have a part of your life that's not working out the way you want it to, go back and look at this. Look at what are the thoughts I'm thinking, what are the feelings I'm creating, what are the behaviors that I'm doing, and what's the result?
Yeah.
And if I can change the thought just slightly, then all of a sudden, so for me, interestingly enough, I would never go on a date because I was terrified of feeling rejection. Isn't that interesting? Here I am. I've got this goal of getting married, but I won't go on a date. That doesn't make sense, does it?
No.
So I had to find a way to get myself okay with going on a date. So I used to say to myself, like, whether someone chooses you or not is not a reflection of how lovable you are. Like, you're going to meet lots of men. Some of them you're going to click with, some of them you won't, and you will be okay. So then all of a sudden I start talking to myself that way. Before I'm feeling rejected, I'm feeling shameful, I'm feeling unworthy, I'm feeling not attractive, like I'm not feeling good about myself, right? So now all of a sudden I'm changing that thought, and I'm all of a sudden feeling like a bit hopeful, and I'm feeling a bit lighter, and I'm feeling a bit more like maybe a bit excited and maybe a bit more willing. And then all of a sudden I'm going to say yes to the dates, and I'm going to go on the dates. And then all of a sudden the result starts to change if you keep working on that. So you've got to understand, if you're in your inner critic and self-loathing, we have to get you to the neutral ground, the middle ground. And what I say is, write down those 3 thoughts that loop in your mind over and over that you probably don't even realize. We can't change what we don't first acknowledge. I'm 44 this year, okay? I met the love of my life 2 years ago. So that's 42, which is relatively late, I would say. I didn't even realize that I felt unworthy of love until about 3 years ago.
Oh.
So you have to actually acknowledge, like I was on a call with a client today. She's this very successful boss babe. She seems very confident, but I'm listening to her and I'm like, she's scared. And I brought it up and I said, she's been offered this opportunity, and she was trying to like dance her way around the fact that she didn't feel worthy of it and she didn't feel scared. And I just gave it to her, and it's called confrontational coaching. And I said, can I ask you, on some level, are you scared of this? And she went really quiet. And she said, I actually think I am. I would never want to admit that, but I am. And I said, well, you can't heal this until you admit it. So until you actually acknowledge the thoughts, you can't change them. So acknowledge them first, and then you've got to practice. And it takes your brain, you got to think about this, right? There's a great quote I love. If it took you a few decades to walk into a forest, it isn't going to take a few weeks to walk out. So I had been practicing over and over and over, I'm not worthy of love, no one loves me, there's something wrong with me, for 40-something years, right? That still comes up for me now. When my partner like forgets something that's important to me, that's immediately where I go. When my partner doesn't give me as much affection as I want, that's immediately where I go, right? But do I stay there? No, I pull myself out of it, right? So your brain has to practice a new thought about 400 to 600 times before your body starts to believe it. And it will happen if you continue, but it's not going to happen overnight.
Of course.
So you have to commit yourself. You have to say, I'm going to practice saying these 3 thoughts, these new 3 thoughts, 3 times each, 3 times a day until forever, until I start to actually feel it.
Yeah.
And for some people, it'll happen in a few weeks. For some, it'll happen in a few months. For some, it'll be a few years.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
What's the difference between her feeling unworthy of it and being scared of it?
Yeah. So, okay. So deep down, I would say she actually feels unworthy about the opportunity, but the emotion so unworthiness is basically inadequacy. Okay. But what she was doing was she was using all these excuses to try and excuse herself from actually admitting she felt unworthy. So she feels unworthy because she feels scared she's not good enough. That on some level, she's like, am I good enough? Like, will people judge me? Am I capable enough? Am I smart enough? Am I experienced enough?
Yeah.
And so, but because she presents as so confident and she likes to think of herself as a confident person, she's going to keep holding on to those excuses and she was going to avoid the opportunity. But really, that's just her mind wanting to avoid feeling the feeling of fear.
Yeah.
So that's what we worked on in the session. I said, what would it be like if you could just sit with that fear and actually admit it and acknowledge it? And we did that. And then all of a sudden, because she allowed herself that 90 seconds to move through it, then all of a sudden she starts letting it go. And she's like, oh my God, I don't want to be afraid of this. I want to lean into this. I'm going to do this just because she allowed herself to feel it.
Yeah, so good. I want to ask a question. When you're at your darkest points in your biggest depression, were you moving your body?
Yes, but in a way that wasn't intentional.
Okay.
So I've always been an athletic person, always been very much into sport. So I love exercise for like mental health.
Yeah.
But I will say that I don't think it's I definitely think, and the evidence proves most people that exercise tend to have better mental health. But I will say that a lot of people use their exercise as a way to avoid feeling those feelings as well. So I was a state level surfboat rowing athlete. I was a CrossFit athlete. I was like all these things.
Yeah, wow.
I was lean as I was 20 kilos lighter than I am today. I was an elite athlete, but it was as a way of running from my pain.
Yeah.
So, what's interesting is we all have coping mechanisms to run from pain. Some of them are glorified by society. Some of them are demonized. So let's just talk about the demonized ones. Like they're like smoking, vaping, gambling, porn, alcoholism. Like they're like demonized by society. Like we kind of know that they're bad, right? But some people use like glorified ways as running from their pain. So being super successful, hardworking, getting into a relationship, shopping, looking good, going to the gym. They're still running from pain. And I can tell within 5 minutes of talking to someone whether they're integrated or not. It's all about, Chase Hughes says this great quote and he's like, you can understand someone by understanding this one thing. What is it this person is wanting me to believe about them? Like genuine, secure, authentic people don't need you to believe anything about them. They just don't. They're so okay in themselves. They're not loud. They're not telling you about their latest achievement. They're not da-da-da-da-da. They just are. So my measure of like a person is like, how do I, and usually they make other people feel that way when you're with them. And emotions are transferred constantly. Like if I was here today and I was super anxious and like super in my head and overwhelmed, you would feel that and you would feel uncomfortable. You'd be like, you'd kind of be like, you wouldn't really be able to put your finger on it, but you would feel uncomfortable.
Did you feel anxious today?
Not at all. No.
I did.
Yeah, really?
Yeah,
okay.
I never feel anxious, but today was just a crazy day.
Yeah.
So much going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you making time to still interview me. But usually an emotion, if we are hooked onto an emotion, we usually transfer it. So whereas authentic, relaxed, secure people transfer that. Like you just feel good around them.
And those people don't care what anyone thinks of them either.
They just don't because they actually they actually like themselves. They've actually done the inner work to like let go of those demons themselves.
I want to go back to that the external facade, not facade, the external, the way the external people, like people perceive you versus the thoughts in your mind. And then you've spoken about like communication a lot and talking to people about, your mentor spoke to you about their experience and then you do that with others. So it's like, it's bridging the gap between the two through communicating is kind of like the fix. It's the resolution for that problem, yeah?
So can we just, I just want to understand what you're saying. So you're talking about people that perceive you, like people's perception of you or opinion of you? That's one thing? Is that what you're talking, is that what you mentioned?
Yeah, as in when you were so surprised that your family was surprised.
Yes, yep.
So if you're feeling something on the inside, but you communicate it. Then everyone actually knows how you're feeling, which then changes the whole outcome. Whereas not communicating, you're kind of like you're separating the two, and then no one actually knows how you feel.
100%. So exactly. And that was because I was afraid. I didn't share anything with anyone because at that point I did care what people thought of me a lot. You know, I did. I really cared a lot about what people thought of me. And my image was tied to being seen as this successful person, entrepreneur. Like I was in the community. I raised money for charities. Like I hung a lot of my worthiness on that. So then when I would feel all these awful emotions and all of this self-loathing, I didn't feel like, and I wasn't even conscious of it at the time, but I couldn't even share that with anyone because I was so afraid of what people would think of me. So I think what happened was that whole like chapter of my life, like, and that moment of like me sitting there telling my sister and her being shocked, like that was shocking to me because I didn't, by the way, I wasn't even aware that I wasn't telling people. Like I wasn't even aware of the fact that I was so split in my personalities. I actually just wasn't conscious of it until that moment. I remember sitting there. I remember where we were. I remember looking at her and I remember just thinking, I was confused, but what do you mean? I'm messed up. Like, of course I feel this way. And that's when I realized. And then from that moment, I started really being more committed to, and it was also because I was so doing my own inner work too. I was so letting go of so many demons that they were hard enough for me to face. I didn't really care if it was uncomfortable for you to sit with it. And it was a gift because I can now look back and see, like I had a lot of like friends and associates and people that I spent time with. I was like bouncing around with lots of different people and I used to really pride myself on being popular. And I think a lot of that fell away because people were really uncomfortable with me sharing like about my past and my trauma and naming my father as like a big part of my pain. You know, some of my family were really uncomfortable with it and that's okay. Like it's not their story to tell, it's mine. And, you know, it's because I've done that deeper work and I've sat in some of the biggest, like I've sat in some of the most harsh retreats in the most harsh conditions where I've had to really sit with myself. And when you do that, you just, a sense of freedom comes that you just can't describe.
In that time, being a high achiever, pretty successful, you are obviously channeling a lot of the pain, like as in that was your coping mechanism 100%. At the time. But was there a lot of stress day to day?
Yes.
Like you would have been really stressed out as well.
Do you know what?
The stress drives.
Do you know what? I remember going to a fertility. I remember going to a gynecologist, a naturopath, and she said, "Are you stressed?" And I was like, "No, not at all." I used to think stress meant worry, and I don't worry a lot. And I came home and I was telling my partner, and because I was having all these health issues, and he was like, "Babe, you wake up at 5 a.m., you go to the gym on an empty stomach, you do CrossFit for an hour, you go and have a coffee, you don't eat, then you go to work and you work for a few hours, and then you might eat a banana." And you're on the go, you're in meetings, you're coaching classes, you're talking, you get home at 7 o'clock and crash. And I remember him telling me that and I was like, wow. So yeah, I was highly stressed and I put on like 25 kilos because the cortisol and the adrenaline finally, like I was so inflamed that in the end I put on so much weight that I just had to look at that. But yeah, I was very stressed.
Yeah, which then goes to show back to your question about the moving the body. So even though you were training, you were training in such a high stress state. It's unhealthy training, really.
Oh, you know what? It's funny because my naturopath said to me at the time, "Would you consider letting go of CrossFit for a little while and doing Pilates or just walking?" And I remember like, That's not exercise. Like I you know, but you know, and I look at like that was in my early 30s. So I've had health challenges for probably nearly the better part of 10 years. I'm only just kind of working through them now. And if I had, I really wish I had let go of my ego and changed back then because, yeah, I did the worst thing ever. Like I kept doing CrossFit, I kept running, I kept killing myself, and my body just never had a chance to actually regulate and balance out because I was living. And do you know what? The gift was COVID. COVID happened and the businesses were closed overnight. So that forced me to, if it wasn't for that, like I would never have stopped.
So you were still doing the CrossFit, you were still living that lifestyle even in your journey because you said you've been, for about 10 years you've been.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say when COVID happened, that like I had a bit of an awakening with when I had the suicide attempt. That was 2018. But when 2020 happened, that was when that was like my real dark night of the soul. Like I reckon I've had two, that first one in 2018 and 2020. Because in 2020, weirdly, coincidentally, my partner at the time broke up with me, the one that I thought I was going to get married to. We were living in the same house together. I had to move out. Businesses went bankrupt overnight, like pretty much. Like my accountant said to me, I think you're going to go bankrupt. You can't afford to pay the leases at all these sites without income. And all of a sudden, I was like, you know, defined to a 1-bedroom apartment and I just couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't do anything. And it was funny because I'd spent all this money on psych appointments for so long and then all of a sudden I had no money and I did more work on myself in that 6 months of that lockdown because I was just obsessed with trying to understand myself. I found all these online therapists, psychologists, coaches that were just teaching different stuff, like more about your childhood, more about your emotional home, your patterns. And all of a sudden it started to make sense. And I was like, wow, okay, I can understand why I am the way I am. Now, this is where I've created my own emotional intelligence framework to help people who are lost, who've done all the therapy, done the psych and still feeling lost, to help them go back to their childhood and understand this is exactly why you feel the way that you do and the ways you think, the thoughts you think you're having. And so I started to like really shift and change. And that's when I started to really, I would say the last 6 years has been like my deepest healing, like my deepest, like fully letting go. Because in that moment, like I remember my partner breaking up with me and he said to me, I'll never forget it. He said, Nez, I just feel like I'm not good enough for you. And I thought that meant he thought I was too good for him, but it didn't. And I didn't really get that until months later. And I was at a barbecue with a friend and that broke me, that whole relationship, because I thought we were going to get married. And I remember asking these two friends that I have, I was like, what is it that made you choose her? Like, you know, because he was a bit of a ladies' man and ended up with one of my friends. And I was like, what is it about her? And he said, Nez, she's the first woman I've ever met that I knew was too good for me, but never made me feel that way. And in that moment, I was like, oh my God, I realized all of my own unworthiness, judgment, shame, rejection, I had been putting onto my partner for so long and I just didn't realize it. So here I was, I thought I loved him, but at the same time, these little things that I would say and do every day, I was just passing my pain onto him and judging him, and he was never good enough. I would just complain and whine and, you know, I was just constantly like, I'm never happy. And so that was a huge like wake up call. I realized, well, I couldn't accept him because I can't even accept myself because my dad could never accept me. So that's when I had to do the healing of like actually like returning to myself and actually loving myself and accepting myself for everything. Like the way I look, the way I am, like my imperfectness, like just actually really, really liking the human I am.
We talk about it all the time. It's just being the truest expression of yourself.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just actually looking in the mirror. I remember the first time, like I used to look in the mirror with such self-loathing, right? I used to just look at myself and I'd be like, your nose and your skin and you got gray hair and just, you know, and I'm sure a lot of women resonate with this. And I remember this first day, like trying to do this. And I remember looking at the mirror and just saying, Nerida, you're not that bad. Like, you're not that bad. Like, and it was just this constant over and over, like talking to myself more kindly. You know what I used to say to myself? If I wouldn't say it to a friend, I'm not saying it to me. You know, I really had to say that to myself. Like, I'm not going to say mean things about myself if I wouldn't point at a friend and say them to a friend. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong because they have this relationship with other people. Like, you're so supportive and loving and encouraging to other people, but are you that way internally to yourself?
Yeah, but and why wouldn't you be? But then it gets lost somewhere.
Because you're an expression of your parents.
Yeah.
And you know, if I'll tell you this too. I've had people, it's not just the way that they talk to you, it's the way they talk to themselves.
And each other.
Exactly. Big one for each other.
That's a big one.
Big one, because I've worked with people where they're like, I don't get it. My dad loved me so much. I was the apple of his eye, but he did not love his wife. And so she learns the relationship. Like a woman, I'll tell you this right now, and this is my own anecdotal stuff. A man learns about his worthiness out in the world through his father. Okay, so business, success, all of that. A man learns about his worthiness in love from his mother. A woman learns about her worthiness out in the world through her mother. She learns about her lovability and her worthiness in love from her father. But they're also watching the relationship between mum and dad and the relationship they have with themselves. So like I've had women come and work with me and they're like, I don't get it. My mum's so supportive. And I'm like, well, how does your mum talk about her own self? Like, how does she actually talk about herself? And she's like, oh no, she judges herself hardcore. And I'm like, exactly. You've actually absorbed that. Yeah. You think about it, right? If I said to you guys, hey, come to my house for dinner next week, and I give you the address and you arrive at my house and I live in a $10 million mansion and you walk in and you're like, oh my God, Nerida, your house is amazing. You know? And I'm like, oh, it's so dated. It needs new furniture and it's so old. It needs a new, a new interior, and we need to paint it and we need to go bigger. It's too small, right? And then a week later I say to you, hey, like, are you going to invite me over to your place for dinner? Are you inviting me to your place for dinner? No. And if I went to your house for dinner and I came in and I was all complimentary about your home, would you believe it?
Right.
You wouldn't, because you know the standards I have for my own home.
Yeah.
Does this make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
So you have to walk the path first because other people won't trust you if you don't actually like yourself or respect yourself or have that with yourself. Like I say this all the time.
I've got a question on that.
Yeah.
What if that person is talking about their house like that because they feel bad, or there's an insecurity not about the house, but they're projecting the insecurity of like, they know they have a nice house, but they feel bad that they have a nice house. Does that make sense?
They feel guilty.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Or they feel uncomfortable.
Maybe a bit more uncomfortable than guilt.
Yeah. Well, what's going to happen is the other person is still going to believe the judgment you have of your own home that you would have on theirs. So let's just say let's just give it a different example. Like, let's just say you're really, really fit and you look after your body. But, you're looking in the mirror and you're like, oh, I've really got to lose just another couple of kilos. Like, I just want ripped abs. And your best mate is 25 kilos overweight. What do you think he's thinking? Does he think that when he looks at me? Like, we are all constantly asking ourselves, like, what do people think of me? And the way that we learn that is, what do they think of themselves? So what I encourage you to think about is, it's called integration, right? I really believe one of the reasons I am such a powerful coach is because you will never hear me disrespect myself, talk down to myself, criticize myself, judge myself. You will never hear that. You will only ever hear me giving myself compassion, giving myself grace, giving myself a break. Now, do I have high standards? Do I chase excellence? Absolutely, I do. Absolutely. I work hard. I love my job. I love what I do. But when I don't hit the mark, where do I go from there? I want you to think about this. One of the big reasons I am the way I am is because I was so into sport growing up. And one of the things is we would train so hard, right? And we would go and compete at a race. And then if we would lose, we would come in and our coach would sit us down and he'd say, first of all, I just want to tell you, I'm so proud of you all. We got through this happened, that happened, da-da-da-da. What could we do differently next time? And we would sit down and we would do a debrief and we'd be like, well, next time we'd go this way out through the waves, or this time we'd go harder on the turn. So I didn't even realize this at the time, was developing what's called a growth mindset, where we didn't shame spiral if we lost a race. So when people say to me, I just have high expectations, you know what? That actually lands for me as you judge yourself and you have unresolved shame. Because if you have high expectations but you don't meet them, where do you go? Do you go to your inner coach or do you go to your inner critic? And if you're in your inner critic, that's unresolved shame. Yeah. If you're actually punishing yourself, That's actually an emotion of shame that's coming up through thought.
That's the difference between failure and success, which coach you go to. Because you need to fail. You need to fail quick.
Yeah.
You need to learn from your failures.
Yeah.
I feel like failure is the biggest success because you're one step closer.
Yeah.
And you got to just,
yeah.
I encourage failure. I think it's the best thing you do. I've got a business building and every time we have a fail, I say, I actually celebrate it. It's like, all right, perfect. We've made this mistake. Yeah. We're not going to make it again. We're growing.
Yeah.
We make heaps of mistakes.
Yeah.
Right? We learn from them. You go
from them. That's life.
That's life. Like you got to take it on board and learn from it, grow from it. And that's the key to success.
So Carol Dweck wrote a book called Mindset, which is really fascinating. And what she was fascinated by was why are some people, she found that there are two types of people. Some people you could give them something to learn or a task or a challenge and they would fully absorb themselves in it and they would just show up and they would be like, I'm going to try this thing and I'm going to work hard and I'm just going to see how this goes, right? And if they made a mistake, they'd keep going. She says they had a veracity for like challenge and just working hard. Then she found there were people that could not fully let themselves be in the experience because they were so focused on the outcome. What if I fail? What if I make a mistake? What if this happens? What if people think that? That's a fixed mindset. This is a growth mindset. And she found it really fascinating why some people fixed and some people growth. And, you know, I will say hands down, this is the difference between successful and unsuccessful people. Successful people don't give up. They don't make it mean anything about themselves. They continue to keep showing up. When they fall short of the mark, they just go, okay, I did my best. Maybe I could do this differently. Maybe I'll do that differently next time. I'll keep going. But people with a fixed mindset, who, by the way, were raised by parents who put a lot of pressure on them, expectation, had a lot of shame, had a lot of like pressure. They're the ones that are stuck in a fixed mindset and they can't actually fully let go because they're so afraid of feeling shame if they fail.
Yeah.
So it's just
fear of failure.
I'm the same. Like what does failure even mean? You know, like really, what does it mean? I've met people that have gone bankrupt, lost millions, and they're like that. If that didn't happen, I wouldn't be where I am now in my billion-dollar company. So it's like failure it's not even it's like, what does that even mean?
It's only if you're measuring at a point of time.
Yeah,
really. But
exactly.
There is no point of time.
You'll never meet someone. Like I heard someone say once, and I can't remember who it was, but it's like you'll never meet someone who like has failed that has never given up. Like it's just, you know, the only people that fail are those who give up or never even try, never even start. Whereas those people who are showing up, trying, going again, just keep chipping away.
100%.
Eventually you make it. You have to.
Yeah, it's 100%. Consistency. Consistency will always outweigh the hard work.
100%. 100%. It's like that quote, talent, it's a really old quote, but it's like hard work will always beat talent every day of the week. And it's so true.
100%.
How many people do you know that are really talented and gifted but can't work hard so it doesn't go anywhere?
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah, and how many people, how many people from school that were like A+ students work for D grade students?
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, exactly. They're employed and not an entrepreneur.
Yes, intelligence isn't everything either. It comes down to like discipline. Discipline's a big one because the discipline can get you through the failure.
100%. 100%. And I think that's something that's a skill we're losing. Like we're celebrating a culture of like mediocrity. You know, like whereas discipline and hard work, like they're actually being in a very subtle way in culture these days, they're being mocked, which is really a shame. But I actually think like to celebrate those things, hard work, like perseverance are actually a value of society.
Where is like discipline being mocked?
Well, if you want to get political, don't you think that there's a bit of an attack on I think there's an attack on successful people. Like successful people are being looked down upon as being greedy or being materialistic or, you know, like Tony Robbins, like he's worth billions. He gets criticized all the time and yet he gives billions to charity every single year. I think there is a very subtle attack on, excellence, and we're trying to normalize in schools and for children mediocrity. Like look at the participation awards, like the ribbons. We don't celebrate winners anymore. We give everyone a participation. And I know I'm going to get hate for this.
No,
but I think I got a participate. I think I used to get awards for trying.
And like
From
that's
memory,
all. Like
I think I did.
you know, I love it. I think it's great to celebrate someone trying, but I also think we should never take away from people who are actually achieving.
I
you know what I
agree.
mean? I think we should still acknowledge people who are actually achieving good things.
100%.
Yeah, I'm against the whole schooling system.
Oh, me too.
I haven't sent my kids anywhere yet.
Don't.
And I don't know
Homeschool.
what to do.
Homeschool.
Yeah.
It's only going to get worse.
But what does homeschool even mean? Like, isn't it-
Unschooling. Just unschool.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Just don't ever put them in and just do whatever you can to support your wife to be able to stay at home.
Yeah.
And take the money you would have sent them to school with and get tutors, get people in to support her.
Travel the world.
Yeah. Just honestly, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the trajectory we're on. But
Yeah.
it's still very like, again, it creates, you don't know. You don't know what to do.
It would be
There's no one's
overwhelming.
paved the way in front of us to be like, oh, do this. you
No,
know?
there's
you'd
heaps
be-
of people.
And
you'd
it's
be
never been that
surprised.
bad.
Oh,
You'd be
there's heaps of
surprised. You
people.
know how many successful people
Yeah.
that I could name that were homeschooled, and you'd be like, what? Like,
Oh,
as in so many successful people have been homeschooled.
there
I
are
know what
so
you mean,
many.
as in not paved, as in there's no.
Yeah.
If we want to get into like a bit of like future plans, like we're planning to like potentially take over our own school, like take over an old rundown school.
Amazing.
And just put our own curriculum, our own
Great.
ways of learning.
Great.
Get rid of like tables and chairs. I
Yeah.
feel like sitting down for 12 years like creates like back pain and
Yeah.
physical
100%.
problems later down the track.
Yeah.
And just taking the best from Steiner, taking the best from
Yeah.
Montessori,
Yeah.
taking the best out of like the Japanese philosophies, the way they teach.
Yeah.
Like even Kumon is, Kumon,
No.
most kids that did Kumon when I was at school were like the smartest
Oh,
kids.
what is
And
Kumon?
Kumon is just like, it's a Japanese word for like bite-sized learning.
Oh, yeah.
It's a Japanese philosophy
Yeah,
of
great.
teaching, yeah.
Oh
And
my gosh,
There's
that's
just so many
awesome.
little things, but
Wow.
maybe,
You should definitely do that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's got to be done. As in not me,
Yeah.
I feel like it's a collective thing that has to happen.
Yeah.
It's got to be like 10
Yes.
families that come
Oh,
together, 20
100%.
families, and just get it done.
Well, I don't have any kids yet, but when I do have them, I'm definitely coming your way for sure. Because we need that. And that's already happening in the US. Like there are independent schools happening in the US that are,
spiking at the moment.
Yeah.
I think
It's
since
only-
COVID woke up everyone.
yeah, it woke everyone up. And it's only
Great
going to get
awakening,
worse.
great
As the world
awakening,
gets
yeah.
more and more crazy.
Yeah. Again, I've brought up frequency heaps, but I feel like the more human beings that raise their frequency, it
Yeah.
just kind of like it shadows through and it just
Yeah.
starts to grow. And
There's also the level of polarity, like the more lower frequency humans and the more higher frequency. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of just,
Yeah.
and the higher they get, the lower they get. And
Yeah.
same as COVID.
Yeah.
Like look how much COVID was detrimental
Yeah.
in so many different ways. And it was such this negative thing, but there was the
woke people
equal of like, there was the exact equal opposite of positivity that came out of it.
wellness has
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
booming, absolutely
yeah.
booming since.
Everyone's like taking care of themselves. And
yeah.
that's the
I
thing,
think-
right? You don't wake up unless you go through pain. Like, because it's so,
That's right.
I was watching Chase Hughes talk about The Truman Show. Have you watched The Truman Show since COVID?
No.
Like I watched it before COVID, but I didn't really get it. And then I've watched it again since COVID. And I'm like, oh my God, I see all the hidden messages.
Yeah.
And the guy says, like they're interviewing the guys who kept him trapped. And they said, why did you keep him trapped? And he's like, we never kept him trapped. He could have left at any point. He just actually preferred his own self.
Comfort.
And it's like that's the thing, right? We live in this society, in this prison, because deep down it feels comfortable, it feels normal. Like when you wake up, it's very
That's
painful.
the Matrix.
It's very painful to leave that. So it's like that really landed for me. I was like,
Yeah.
most people don't want to wake up because it's painful too.
Yeah, I think I actually watched it during COVID, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, I rewatched it again like a year ago, and I was like,
Yeah.
wow, it just landed differently.
What's that other movie? The
V for Vendetta?
FIFA Vendetta.
Oh, I
yeah,
haven't seen
we
that.
gotta watch that.
Okay, all right, I'll
Yeah,
watch that
that's
too.
the after COVID one.
Okay.
I watched that during COVID and I was like, man, this is exactly what's going on right
Yeah.
here. It was
Yeah,
weird.
I
Like,
think it
I'd
was
never
just
seen it. And it was
yeah.
randomly on. And
Yeah, it's definitely worth watching.
Yeah, we'll watch it. Thank you.
Yeah.
back to a bit of your story.
Yes.
So now the health issues, since
Yeah.
you've been on like this, like you're saying like the last, how many years you've had like the ultra awakening?
Yeah,
It's been 6 years.
2020 March
Yeah.
2020 was when I fully.
All right. And like what's going on with the health issues? Are they dissipating? Are
Yeah.
some still there?
Yep. I would say so. It took me a few years to really let go of the weight, like and actually lose the weight. I would say now I'm like I've kind of made peace with the fact I'll never get back to the kind of weight I was at. But I would say now I do feel healthier than I have in a long time. But there have been other things that have come up, like, just things like, well, obviously I'm 43. I'm trying really hard to get pregnant with my partner. So I'm trying to make sure I'm fertile. And obviously in your 40s, that's a bigger challenge. So like I've just been trying to really watch my inflammation. I train so differently now. So now I do strength training a couple times a week and I walk, the thing that I used to turn my nose up at. I run once a week. Like I'm really trying to look at ways that I'm training more for longevity rather than aesthetics, even though that has helped. So I'm like doing things like handstands and like going to a trampoline park and just trying to like tumble and flip and just hold on to like as much vitality and youthfulness as I can. It sounds so random. Like I hurt my neck once because I did a flip into a pillow and I kind of crunched my neck and my partner's just like, oh my God. But I really do. Like I saw this guy on Instagram do, this is the test of like your age. Can you stand up and put on a sock, put on your other sock, put on a shoe without having to sit down? And I was like, it's those simple things. Like my niece and nephew, when they were little, I remember like I struggled to get down on the floor and play with them and get back up. And I was like, this is not good. Like I'm only in my 30s. So like really trying to make sure I'm as mobile and agile and healthy as I can. I don't drink anymore. I try really hard to get my sleep, like all those things. I would say I'm feeling good, but I still also do feel oldish, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's kind of part of it. Like you can't fight.
Yeah.
You can't fight it too much. But what you're doing is great. Like the longevity training, thinking ahead rather than just like in the moment. How do I look now?
Yeah.
That sort of stuff. It makes sense.
Yeah, I'm trying really hard to just, I just want to be able to like, I want to be able to pick a baby up off the floor. I want to be able to carry it. I want to be able to run with it if I have to, like I want to train for preparation and like any circumstance that might happen. So I would say that that's kind of been my lens rather than just training for aesthetics. Now, look, would I love to lose another 5 or 10 kilos? Yes, that'd be great. But I also know what it feels like to be at nearly 100 kilos where I felt so like frustrated I couldn't shake that. And I will share, I don't know how open you guys are, but have you heard of peptides? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I've actually been using peptides to support my health over the last 2 years.
Ones?
I've used retatrutide and that's helped me lose weight, which honestly, like I was so nervous about it. I actually went on a peptide podcast recently talking about my journey, but it was the best thing I could have done.
Essentially, it just helps you stay in a calorie deficit.
Yes, so just suppresses your appetite.
So it helps with your cortisol and other things, but the biggest thing for weight loss is it's all science. Like you need to be in a calorie deficit.
100%.
So whatever your maintenance level is, you have to be below that.
Yeah.
And it just helps with that. Yeah.
And like I just didn't realize, like I remember people saying to me, like you'll notice the food noise will just shut down. And I was like, no way. Like my head's always thinking about food. Yeah. And when I took it, I actually did. Like I genuinely did not think about food. And it just gave me that kickstart. Like I lost 15 kilos on it. And now I'm off it and I'm just eating twice a day. Like I'm still maintaining those habits. Peptides? I'm taking BPC still now.
Yeah, nice.
BPC 157, and I'm also taking Kisspeptin for fertility.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I don't know how that's going. I haven't really had enough time to like.
So there's a peptide that helps with fertility.
And if you want energy, get MOTS-C.
MOTS-C. I did do MOTS-C. I did do MOTS-C with my Retta. Felt amazing.
MOTS-C is the bomb.
Like I was waking up at 5 a.m. like bing, going to sleep at 8:30, 9 o'clock, full deep sleep, like.
MOTS-C is the best.
Yeah, I've been really loving it. So,
is there any side effects to it, like later on, or does it?
I don't know.
Does it play with things? A year down the track, 6 months down the track.
Yeah, it's a good question. I did a fair bit of research, but to be honest, like some of them have been studied for longer than others. BPC, I think, is fairly well studied. And I was comfortable enough like to make that decision with where I was at. But I would just recommend anyone listening, you go and do your own research and make sure you're comfortable with it. Some of my girlfriends were taking it for ages before I even thought about it. I was so nervous about it. But then I saw their results and I started getting curious and it's been the best thing I've ever done. I'm not currently taking anything at the moment other than Kisspeptin for fertility, but doing retatrutide was like the best thing I've done in my my 40s ever. Like I would feel so depressed, like that I just could not shake this weight. And I tried everything. Like it just gave me that boost that I needed. And I finally feel like myself again. Yeah.
I think now just stay the consistency, because you said like, I don't know if I'll ever get back there or whatever, but I think it doesn't need to be a short-term fix as well.
Yes.
Just be consistent with the food, be consistent with the movement, with the lifestyle, with the mindset, all of it. And over time, you know, consistency of like look how far you've come in 6 years of ultra awakening, you know, and doing the right things and good habits. Imagine another 6 years.
Yeah.
And then another 6 years.
It's funny you say that, because that was the one thing I couldn't maintain. I didn't realize I was an emotional eater until recently, like until the last few years, because what I would do is I'd be consistent for about 4 to 6 weeks. And then if I didn't see any sort of change, I would just binge. I would swing from, I was so emotional. I was like, oh, this isn't working. And then I would just go and I would binge eat for like a week or two. And then I'd feel sick and then I'd go back, and I just kept swinging so far back and forth that I couldn't just maintain consistency. And I think taking the Reda has just taken away the emotional aspect. Like I literally don't eat now unless I feel hungry.
Yeah.
Whereas before I'd feel bored or I'd feel sad or I'd feel frustrated, any emotion, and I'd go and eat. Yeah. I'd go and find food.
I recently lost about 13, 14 kilos like, in the last 13 weeks.
Wow. What taking? Are we taking?
No. I did Reda for a couple.
Just raw dogged
just for like 4 weeks.
Yeah.
During a time where I like had no time to eat. Like it was just like it was mayhem. I've just been in a calorie deficit, and I've been doing like 15 to 20K steps a day.
Yeah.
Training 7 days and just like nutrient dense foods. Like I've been counting my macros. Yeah. And just like counting my protein, my fats, my carbs, calories. And I'm loving it. I'm enjoying it.
Good.
Yeah, it's actually fun.
Yeah, it feels good when you feel good, doesn't it? Like you feel youthful, you feel vital, like, you know?
Yeah.
It's it's
good fun.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Back to the story.
Yes.
Is there anything that you haven't sort of touched on in that, like from 30s onwards?
That's a good question. Look, you know, I was just a very broken person. Like I was very like, if anyone's listening to this, like I was honestly like the complete opposite of what I am today. Like I just, you know, I haven't always been this person. Like right now, I would say I genuinely feel pretty calm, pretty peaceful, pretty content. And for such a long time, I just didn't. I was just so broken. And I just hope anyone that's listening to this, like if you're in that place, like there is an answer. There is a way out of it, because, I didn't feel like there was. And I'm just, every dollar I started investing in myself and working with mentors and doing programs, it has been so worth it to get to where I am today. Like I'm literally in a relationship with the man of my dreams. Like I'm so happy.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And like, I really pray that we get to have children, that we get to start a family, whether God, you know, like allows that or not, I'm not sure. We've got some challenges there, but my business is thriving. I love working with women. Like I'm in a really good place. But it wasn't always this way. So I'm just grateful for it now.
Any advice for someone that was in your position?
Yeah, do the work. Find a mentor. Find someone that's ahead of you in the game, someone that you resonate with, someone that when they speak, you feel it in your body. Like you just feel like you need to work with this person, and just go and find the money and just do it, because it's never money wasted. It's the single best thing I've ever done in my life. I've invested in houses and cars, in clothes and, you know, trips and travel, and none of it has changed my life as much as investing in the work.
And in yourself.
Yeah.
It's the most important.
100%. Yeah.
And now if a female comes to you, how do you tackle it?
Yeah.
Like, what's the process like?
Yeah, great question. So the way I work with women is I work with you for 6 months, and for the first 3 months, you're learning my emotional intelligence framework. So you're basically doing self-paced video learning, which I'm going to give you guys the course to watch. And you're basically just learning about my framework, like where I've learned this work and how it resonates with you in your life. And then I spend 3 months helping you launch your business and launch your personal brand. So I actually teach you how to make money being an emotional intelligence coach, just like me. You know, and the emotional intelligence industry is set to be a $5 billion industry in the next 10 years.
Wow.
So like that's huge opportunity for women. You can work from home, you can work your own hours, you can work like build your own income and charge people what you want. And I'm just so excited. So for anyone listening to this, I'm going to offer them a 50% discount on my online course. Wow. If you just go to my website, Nerida Bint, and you go to Master Your Mindset, it's $500. You get it for half off if you just put the podcast code in, which is podcast. And yeah, if you're interested in working with me as a mentor, then send me a message on Instagram, come and find me. Because yeah, I love helping women move through their emotional blocks, like their low self-worth, self-doubt, imposter syndrome, and show up and be the woman that they are actually always destined to be. There's a great quote that I love. Version of hell is getting to the end of your life and meeting the person that you could have become. And I just never want that. I want to get to the end of my life and look back and be so happy and content with how I've lived it, what I've achieved, and what I've done.
100%. Love that.
So good. Do you I went blank.
That's okay.
I had a question.
I think we're just about out of time. You got it?
Nah.
We'll call it there.
You can ask me off air.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Nice to hear your story.
Yeah, thanks,
actually, I just remembered my question. Sorry.
Yeah, go.
What's your relationship like with your family now?
Yeah, good. There's because of the healing I've done, I don't demonize my dad anymore. I used to demonize my dad and idolize my mum. And now what I've done is I've learned to humanize both of them. I've learned to see that they were both just doing the best that they could. And there are things that they did do for me. Like they didn't ever kick me out on the street. They never they did actually take care of me the best way they could. And, all of the trauma and all of the pain I've been able to turn around and use as a gift. And I would not be the person I am today if it wasn't for that. Exactly. So thank God I could heal and work through it. So yeah, I would say I'm at peace with them.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you very much. God bless.
Beautiful. God bless.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, my pleasure.
If you're still listening, we're giving away 5 free bottles of C60 to the first 5 people who comment reflection on any of our pinned posts. God bless. Thank you.